Ants in His Pants, or Terror in the Sky. Walter pulled up to the airstrip near Austin, Texas on a fair spring day. A gentle breeze was blowing down the runway, and a crowd of hang gliding enthusiasts had gathered at one end of the piste. The visitor parked his truck just off the grass and hopped out to watch the proceedings. As he approached the group, a Dragonfly tug plane touched down nearby and rolled past a glider that was all loaded up and ready for the string. The pilot was already prone out in his harness, hanging suspended and relaxed, and ready for the fun. He was hang-checked and geared up to give the magic signal for launch. He had only to hook up the string and put on his helmet. Before much longer, that glide head would be gliding. The ground crew snagged the string from the passing tug and made the connection to the pilot and his wing. As a last detail, the pilot, a good old boy named Rebel, reached over to grab his helmet and pull it on over his head. He fastened the chin strap securely and was ready for action. "Flight speed," he commanded. "Let's roll." In response, his launch crew gave the tug driver the go-ahead signal, a windmilling arm, and leaned into the tow dolly to get the show rolling with a gentle shove. Meanwhile, the tug master stepped on the gas and his tiny craft began to roll along the runway, towing its colorful and willing burden behind. Flight was about to be committed. Walter watched the operation commence and had to pause in wonder. He held his breath while the tug rolled faster and faster and the glider approached liftoff speed about 30 miles an hour. The wing obliged Walter and everyone else as well by lifting eagerly into the sky and staying wings level and nicely lined up behind the tug. Now the Dragonfly lifted off too, and together the winged pair headed off for the wild blue yonder. It was truly a sight to behold, a spectacle Walter never tired of watching. "Hey, Walter," came a friendly greeting. "Are you ready for the string?" It was Greasy, one of the local glide heads. "There goes the Rebel now," he continued. Walter gazed up Greasy's finger at the glider that was slowly disappearing into the friendly skies, when he saw a funny movement. Not just a strange-looking movement, but an honest-to-God funny movement, and Walter had to blink to make sure he'd believed his eyes. It appeared that the Rebel had hauled off and whacked himself in the kisser mid-flight, his own self. But why would he do that? Most glide heads would be holding the bar as though their life depended upon it, which, when you consider the situation, it clearly does. But Walter had a nice view of the Reb. He'd seen it with his own eyes. The Reb had whacked himself in the face. And now, there he goes again, smack! Others from the group had noticed the unlikely too now. "What the heck is that about?" one of them asked for all. "Did you see that? What the heck's he doing? Has he lost his mind?" But now the unlikely became the focus, because as all of the grounded flyers watched, Reb began to smack himself about the head and face in a most demented manner. First, only one hand was the culprit. It socked him in the face 2 or 3 times. But quickly, both hands left the control bar behind and joined in a mutual and concerted smacking of their rightful owner in the face in a manner that a glide head's hands should definitely not. Walter wasn't sure due to the ever-lengthening distance between himself and the tow operation, but he thought he might have heard the Reb exclaim something as well, a curse perhaps. He sure was smacking himself around, though, of that there was just no doubt. In fact, the glider went wildly off tow, accelerated in the wrong direction for a moment, and then the tug pilot cut old Reb loose, giving him the tow string. Next thing Reb must have realized was that, while he was for some reason known only to himself smacking his own head, face, and shoulders, now he was also dragging 200 feet of tow line. This was just not in the flight plan at all. The glider wobbled along at a slow speed for a moment or two, and then a wing dropped, and the nose did too. The glider picked up some speed in a shallow bank and revealed the pilot in a better, so to speak, light. Exposed in profile now, it was clear to all the bystanders that Reb had plumb lost his mind. It was crazy. Next, an object was jettisoned from the wing. The Reb's helmet came tumbling down from the heavens, hit the hard ground, and bounced wildly off into the bushes. What the bejesus! The wing was downwind now. It was still banked up and was about to start slipping to the ground when Reb ceased his lunatic behavior for a few exciting moments and clutched at the control bar with both hands long enough to shove the wing level. It was still headed downwind at a low altitude and marginal airspeed, but Reb seemed not to care. He was back at whacking himself in the kisser with both hands. The ground was rapidly approaching, however, and it appeared likely that the madman in the sky was about to plow a deep and lengthy furrow into the hard Texas soil. It just wouldn't be pretty. As Walter grabbed his head in horror, the Reb regained his senses for another brief moment and grabbed the wing long enough to shove the bar with a giant heave and more or less turn the thing around into the breeze for landing. Then, still connected to the dangling tow string and not bothering to lower his landing gear or even grab the bar at all, Reb plowed into the ground as expected. Miraculously, he plowed in nice and slowly on his tiny control bar wheels, bounced a time or two, and rolled gently to a stop. It looked like Reb had survived his ordeal after all, and yet, the moment the flight was over, he recommenced his self-flagellation. As he pushed urgently off the ground and gathered his feet beneath him, he let fly a curse that suddenly made everything quite clear to one and all. "Gol dang fire ants!" he cried. "Gol dang 'em to hell, fire ants! Ah!" Apparently, Reb had set his helmet down atop a nest of the horrible plague, while he waited for his journey into the sky. The fire ants had climbed aboard the Reb's brain bucket, and then gone hang-gliding along with him. Perhaps they didn't like to hang-glide. Perhaps they didn't like flying of any sort. Perhaps they had some other agenda for climbing on as they had. Maybe they just didn't like the rebel. Well, anyway, they let old Reb fly for a few minutes, and then they let her rip, all at once taking a bite out of the hapless aviator, stinging him senseless, and leaving him helpless and in a defenseless condition. It was a wonder Reb had survived the incident at all, but it had not been one of his better flights. It is a flight that does not end until Reb has dashed to the nearest hose bib while stripping off his harness and his shirt, has plunged his head in the bucket of dog water sitting there, and has extinguished the fire with a snort and a whimper.